You don't ever want to be hungry, because if you go without eating, be hungry, then your body kicks into starvation mode. And then when you eat, it's going to store it all as fat. Like, so you never ever want to be hungry. You want to eat just little meals, like eat 6 small meals. That's what doctors used to tell people.
We are Saints in the South, your source for gospel growth and good times. All right, welcome everyone to another episode of Saints in the South. This is episode 139. And this is our last week in Isaiah.
Yep.
Wow. We are in chapters 58 through 66, and the title is The Redeemer Shall Come to Zion.
But certainly not our last reference to Isaiah.
That's right.
Oh, yeah.
Exactly right. And
sure of that.
Yep. And hey, we want to say a quick thank you. A week ago today that we recorded, of course, it was Sunday that it was posted, but we were making a big push for our 500 subscribers. And as of this recording on Wednesday, what is it, the 27th?
Yes.
28. We are at 497 subscribers. So by the time this comes out on Sunday, we should be at 500. So thank you, everyone.
8 p.m. Eastern time.
That's right. Yep. It shared it and spread the word. So we appreciate that very much.
That's awesome.
Yep. Well, let's see here. Which one of y'all want to start off? I think, Marcus, you had some stuff on fasting.
Yeah, I mean, sure. We can start off in chapter 58, just right where it picks up, with the first of the lesson. And we talk a lot about the law of the fast here and about the keeping the Sabbath holy as well. A lot of my study came from me thinking I was going to teach seminary for you this Friday, and
right,
because this was my lesson, and I was thinking of an activity, being it was Friday. I was going to try to keep I think you do activities on Friday for your seminary class. So I was thinking of an activity, and I started thinking of a family home meeting that we had years ago, 10 years ago, I don't know, when my kids were a lot smaller. And I remember we were talking about fasting. And one of the things I did was I had my son and my oldest daughter. I gave my son a screwdriver, and I gave my oldest daughter a power drill, and I had a screw and a piece of wood, for each of them to drive the screw down, and whoever could do it, the fastest, this and that, whatever. Anyway, so they sat there with that and doing all kind of stuff. And so I'm starting to realize now why we're not having seminary Friday, because the Lord's like, don't bring no power tools to the church. Anyway,
so Marcus, did you cause the hurricane?
Yeah, we're in a hurricane watch right now, so that's why they canceled seminary for Friday, so I don't have to give this lesson. But anyway, I am now to you guys. And you guys out there, not just Jackson and Kenny. And so anyway, so they had the screwdriver on one screw and they had the power drill on the other screw. Anyway, the whole premise of the lesson was that fasting, the screwdriver sort of represented prayer, and the drill represented fasting. So like, they do the same thing. They got the same purpose. It's to help others. It's to, as far as like trying to give power to, call down power from heaven, basically. And so I was just telling them that if you couple those two things together, how much more powerful it is. I'm not saying take away from prayer. Prayer is powerful in itself, but when you add fasting to it, it really becomes more powerful. And in reality, the battery on that drill is the purpose for because if you're fasting with no purpose, you're just starving. That's all you're doing.
Right.
You got to have a purpose. You don't just fast just to say, I'm just going to go without food to show Heavenly Father or whatever, you know what I'm saying? But you need to have some kind of purpose why you fast. You don't just do it just to do it. It's actually sort of a sacred tool that we have. And so anyway, as I thought about that, I thought about the power of fasting, the things that Isaiah promises, the fact that he's talking about the law of the fast, in the situations that they're in with, trying to comfort the people and tell the people how to rely on Jesus Christ and things. It just goes to show how important it is that we do it. And of course, we know we have a first Sunday every month to set aside for fasting. that I believe that that's just a way to keep it fresh on our mind, so that we make sure we try to do it. Kind of a collective thing we talked about in our handbook thing, about the purpose of the church, and that's strengthening one another. And so when you do something collectively like that globally, it does give you a little bit of strength and a little bit of giving an account of what you do. So
yeah, knowing you're not the
you're only
only
one.
one.
Right.
Yeah, getting back to that community of saints thing.
Exactly.
And what he pointed out here in chapter 58, that he points out the way they were fasting, right?
Yeah.
They really didn't have the real intense, sincere heart, even though they may have been going without food. They
Right.
still were going about with their games, their labors, and really weren't focusing on whatever reason they had in fasting. They really were not focusing on that.
Right.
You're talking about the fact, yeah, you can tell I have said, like,
Yeah.
I had not thought about this until just now, but talking about the power of fasting, it made me realize that fasting is a big part of the reason why I am in the church now, because I was I was member. My mother and I were baptized. I was a convert, but I was young. She had me in Cub Scouts, and we were baptized at the same time. And we were active, and until I became a teenager, and unfortunately, like so many hard-headed teenagers, I
like the children of Israel,
I was interested in other things. I was like, there's a big wide world out there to explore,
right.
and there's a big spacious building that's got a lot of fun stuff going on. And so I was outside of the church for almost 20 years, a long time, for quite a long time. And there's a lot to it that I won't go into right now, but I reached a point in my life where I realized that something had to change, and I needed to make a change. I was at this point in my life. I was a single father. Had a son that I was raising on my own. And I knew that, man, I need to get this kid in church. I felt, just that. And I was like, but what church do I need to go to? And then, I actually was thinking about that, and I had actually spent a little time attending other churches. I'd been to several churches, in the area, different denominations and things. And so I was trying to decide, and I was reading, scriptures, I was praying, and I became frustrated. Honestly, it's kind of funny. I become kind of angry at God a little bit, because I felt like, hey, look, I'm asking something that I should know here. This isn't me being selfish. I've got this kid that I'm trying to teach right. So you should be telling me what's the right way to do it here. And so I finally I got aggravated enough to fast during of my I was reading scriptures and I was praying, and I decided to fast. And I've never been good at fasting. I'm a big guy. I like to eat. And I tell you, it was not easy. I fasted and prayed for 3 days over this decision. It's the longest by far I've ever fasted.
Wow.
And because I was
real intent,
frustrated. I had real intent.
Real
yes,
intent.
I had real intent.
Mhm.
And at the end of it, I didn't have the big neon sign that I was hoping for, but I had this thought in my mind to just go. And I'd been talking to the missionaries, of course, I know I was familiar with the church because I went there as a kid and stuff, but, I was talking to the missionaries among other people. And, that's a thought in my mind, was to go back to the church, the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. And I was like, well, maybe that's the answer. I don't know. I'll do it. And so I went. The next Sunday was the first time I'd been to church in many years. And since then, I could probably count on my fingers the total number of Sundays I've missed church since then. And so
that's great.
It was a big part of it.
The interesting word or emotions that you described before you fasted was anger.
Yeah.
So were you angry at yourself or angry at God for not
I was angry at God, to be honest.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
I was frustrated because I felt like I should be getting an answer.
Right.
I was praying for something that was important. I'm like, well, God, if you're there, I've got this son that I'm trying to raise right. You should tell me what I need to do. And I didn't feel like I was getting a clear answer. And so, yeah, the fasting came when I got
So
so frustrated, I decided to kick it up a notch. Like, well, okay, if you're not going to tell me now, I'm going to fast.
right, yeah, like I'm gonna get you.
That's right.
I'm gonna show you.
That's
But
right.
that is interesting because lots of times when we get angry, we turn away
Yeah.
from God, right? But you turned even more into
Yeah,
Him.
dug in deeper, because at that point I was like, I need to know this. And it was, yeah, I mean, I was focused, man. I had a laser focus at that point, where I was like, I'm going to find out what I need to do at this point. And, then the thought to fast came to my mind. It's like, well, I'm going to fast then, and, I'd heard all the stories about, the power of fasting and prayer. And it's kind of, reminded me what the story Marcus was telling, it kind of, I've never thought of it quite that way, but that's the way that I'd always been taught of fasting, as like a kind of like kicking a battery on your screwdriver.
It's extra,
making it a lot more
boost.
effective. So yeah.
I think it's because it's another level of outward expression, an outward expression of real intent.
Yes.
Prayer can have real intent. I mean, obviously Joseph Smith had real intent, but the reason his real intent was so manifest is what he did. He went out into the woods to pray. So fasting is a way we express that real intent.
Yeah. And fasting is a sacrifice.
Yeah, exactly.
That's
exactly.
Sacrifice is powerful.
Yeah.
Sacrifice is one of the, it's really cool. I know Jordan Peterson has said sacrifice was it's the single greatest discovery that humans ever discovered.
Right.
When human beings first figured out that I can sacrifice something right now in order to be better off at a later point, that was literally the greatest thing that humans ever did, because that's, when we look now at the Old Testament, and we've talked about all the sacrifices, the animal sacrifices that were done, and it, to us, if we look at it through a 21st century lens, it seems kind of barbaric. Oh gosh, they took animals and killed them and sacrificed them, but really, it's the whole idea of sacrifice is actually an extremely sophisticated idea. And so yeah, when people first started realizing that, hey, I can work harder, or I can do without things right now, and then further down the line I'll be way better off, that's changed everything. And so yeah, their sacrifice, fasting is a form of sacrifice in itself.
Right.
Fasting is actually also very healthy.
Yes.
If you want to put a temporal application to it, it's actually very, very healthy to kind of detox your body there a little bit.
Intermittent fasting is all the craze now. And it's funny because there's another friend, a mutual friend of ours, we know that he's really into fitness, and I remember several years ago he started getting into this intermittent fasting thing, and he was telling me about it, and I'm like, I'm looking at him. So for those of you who are listening and not watching, I'm making a very incredulous look right now, like, because I'm looking at him like, dude, you're crazy. Because, dude, I've been struggling with my weight my whole life since I was a little kid, and everything I've ever heard has said that that's not the way to do it. The traditional wisdom from the 70s on, at least, if not before that, was, if you want to lose weight, you need to eat lots of small meals throughout the day. You don't ever want to be hungry, because if you go without eating, be hungry, then your body kicks into starvation mode. And then when you eat, it's going to store it all as fat. Like, so you never ever want to be hungry. You want to eat just little meals, like eat 6 small meals. That's what doctors used to tell people.
That's right.
You need to eat like 5 or 6 or 8 little small tiny meals throughout the day, so you never get hungry, and that's the way to lose weight. And then this intermittent fasting comes along, and a friend's like, man, intermittent fasting, man, you go without eating. And I'm like, dude, that sounds fake. That sounds ridiculous. But it turns out it is true, and it's yet another example of the things that the Lord has told people to do thousands of years ago, that it might fall out of favor with traditional wisdom, but eventually we figure out that it makes sense.
Pretty much anything
the Lord knew what he was talking about. Fasting ain't so bad after all.
Yeah, anything the Lord gives us is always beneficial to us, not just on a spiritual level. It's going to be mental, it's going to be physical, it's going to be everything. And we may not have discovered some of those things yet, but as we go, we'll see that everything he gave us was for our whole being.
And that's something I believe strongly, that I know I talk about a lot. I know there are, and this is my opinion, this is not doctrine, I know some people disagree with me, but I personally don't believe, I know I've heard people say that there's certain commandments that are there just to test our obedience. And I don't believe that. My personal belief is that every single commandment the Lord has ever given us is for our benefit.
Yeah.
Even if we don't know what that benefit is, eventually we'll learn one day.
Absolutely.
Like I go back to the story in the Old Testament of, the Hebrews were told to wash their hands with water before they ate. This was what, 1,500 years before germ theory. Was it before anybody even thought about little tiny living things on your skin? There's no way that people are like, why are you doing that? They're like, I don't know. God told us we're supposed to do it.
Yep.
I'm sure a lot of people are like, dude, that's crazy. Why do you washing your hands with water before you eat? That's dumb.
Right.
Now we know.
Now we know.
That's right.
I know that's yeah, go ahead, Marcus.
Go ahead. I was just gonna say I saw a video today on Book of Mormon Central with John Hilton III, which I wish, man, if we could get
I'm
him
gonna reach
on
out to him.
Okay.
I
definitely want to be in. I want to be in that
right
one for
now.
sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
I want to be in that one for sure.
Yeah.
But anyway, he has a friend, and he was talking about fasting. His friend was talking to him about fasting. His friend's name is Anthony Sweat, just a friend of his. But he said this. He said, if we can control our natural desire to sustain ourselves through food, we can better control our natural desire for selfishness. And I thought, that's absolutely true, because whether we believe it or not, I mean, you could talk about cars and houses and money and things, but literally food, you got to have food. you got to have it. And if we can control that thing that we definitely have to interact with daily, if we can control that, it does become easier for our natural desire for selfishness, because it's very easy to more power to those people that can eat to live and not live to eat, because I love to just eat. I'm not one of those. I want to just eat, because I like it. It's comfortable, it's good, it tastes great. And there's some that just eat. There's just people that I know that can just eat like a piece of broccoli and then eat a piece of just boiled chicken, I should say.
boiled chicken.
But I can't. I don't want no part of that. I'm sorry. I don't want any of that.
Food is going without eating. It takes a lot of self-discipline.
It does.
That's right. Food is, in behavior modification is, what's called a primary reinforcer. It's something that, so that's why, whenever people, researchers are working with animals trying to train them to do things, what you do is you starve an animal, you let it go hungry for a few days, and then it'll do whatever you want it to do. As long as you're able to teach it what you want this animal to do, it will do anything you want it to do for some food. It doesn't care. And there's, the animals aren't like, oh, well, I'm okay, I'm going to go without food. Like, they're like, no, I haven't eaten in 3 days, and whatever you want me to do, you just tell me and I'm going to get some food.
That's right.
I know it's one of my greatest areas of opportunity to fast. I'm kind of ashamed to say it, but over the last couple of years, I fasted some on first Sunday, but I've done a horrible job of really living the law of the fast.
Right.
I really have. So this episode's a good one for me, for sure.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Every time the topic of fasting comes up, I just want to kind of hide myself. I don't want to talk about fasting, so when you gave me that lesson, I was like, oh great, here we go. But
yeah, I know. Yeah, I try to do it, but it's kind of, I'm ashamed to say it's kind of half-hearted. When my wife and I fast, we'll usually eat, kind of fairly late in the evening on Saturday, and then Sunday it's like after church. It's like it hasn't been, we haven't really skipped, we've basically skipped breakfast. Right. Maybe at a late lunch at most.
And somebody brought this up, I thought was fascinating to think about, because we're talking about food right now, and that's the gist, that's the literal, as the Lord talked about the law of fast, it was food and water for how we have it today. Anyway, somebody said you can also fast in other ways. You can add to that. You can fast from the internet for however long.
Yes.
You can fast from, as a matter of fact, our prophet has invited youth and others to do things like this, to fast from social media for 5 days, to fast from a particular TV show that you might need to get away from for whatever it is. There can be all kinds of fasting, because it's basically trying to control our hungers, right? And whatever that hunger is, and maybe consuming us, taking up our time, We might need to step away from it sometimes. And so there can be many ways to fast, but ultimately the law of the fast that we're talking about is food. And fasting is all about hunger, not only our hunger, but also, of course, the hunger of the world. I think it was Gordon B. Hinckley. I wish I had the quote. I just remember him saying how simple the law of fast is. We talked about sacrifice, but it's such a small sacrifice. 2 meals for us is not going to hurt us at all. It won't hurt us at all. But yeah, there's,
like Jackson said, it's actually good for us.
It's actually good for you, right? It's actually it's beneficial in many ways. And then you just take that amount of money, so you're not really losing anything. The money that you would have spent on those 2 meals as you ate them, you give that money to the church through a fast offering. It's not tithes, it's fast offering.
Yes.
So you'd put that fast offering in there. If it's $2 that you think you ate, or if it's $25, if you were going to eat at the Longhorn that day, I don't know. So it's not hurting. It
not on Sunday.
Yeah, not on Sunday, but you know what I mean. Maybe you did a early fast on Saturday, but anyway. But it doesn't hurt us at all. It doesn't really. When we talk about sacrifice, you almost want to. I just feel like we're gonna stand before the Lord one day and go, really, there wasn't very many sacrifices that they were called sacrifices, but it's like, wow. I mean, I really didn't have to do much at all, so anyway, but yeah, and then he goes on, Gordon B. Hinckley said how much it would benefit the world if everybody obeyed the law of the fast. Like, we'd be less taxed. He said that was one of the benefits. We'd be less taxed as a people. I mean, like for all the things that we have to pay for, and for all the shelters and all the, the thing, which are good. I mean, we need that stuff. But what I'm getting at, if we did it organized like this by the Lord's way, it would be taken care of so much easier and so much better without a big burden on the people.
Right.
So.
And y'all see where the church, I think it was last week, just donated $32 million.
Yes.
Dollars
to the
food purposes.
Yes.
Food Bank, World Food Bank or something like that.
Yes. I believe it was World Food Bank. Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, it's
huge.
Getting done, man.
That's huge, man. Yeah. From the handbook, it says a fast day typically includes praying, going without food and drink for a 24-hour period if physically able.
You're right.
And so some people also get caught up on that, and they're like, look, medically I can't fast for 24 hours. Right.
It makes me feel sick if I go without food, if I, I mean, you know what I'm saying? And I'm talking about, and let me say, I know there is people that can physically get ill by not, which is talking about those people there, but what I'm getting, you know what I'm saying? The whiny heinies. Let's go. I mean, come on. You can do this. It's time to buck up. Let's go now.
That's right. Exactly. Yeah.
That's the tagline for this episode. Don't be a whiny heiny.
There's more people out there that are physically capable of fasting that don't fast than there are that can't phically fast.
Right.
Absolutely.
Me included.
Yeah. And me too. That's right.
Yeah.
I mean,
And the sacrifice definitely it also helps you. It gives us strength to bridle our passions and urges and things. It's like there's even you were talking about different types of fasts. There is something called a dopamine fast that a lot of people do. I know you're familiar with that, where you just go for a period of time where you abstain from anything that gives you that little dopamine hit in your brain. The things, social media, video games, like all the things that you look at or listen to that give you that little dopamine hit, because just like any other drug, our brains kind of can become desensitized to that, and so it can become harder and harder to get pleasure out of things. And so, when people do this dopamine fast, you're kind of, it's just like, if you're taking a medication every day that you build up a tolerance to, and you go a little while without it, then, your tolerance lowers. And so you kind of almost lower your tolerance to the dopamine, and it gives you an increased ability to feel, the happiness and the excitement and the things, so lots and lots of good reasons for different types of fasts.
That Anthony Sweat, he said, that's John Hilton's friend. He said, if we have the strength to turn away a steamy meal, we will have the strength to turn off a steamy show. And the last thing one of the other things he said I thought was really interesting. He said, if we have the control to not touch the cookies on the counter that will ruin our fast, we will have the control to touch not the unclean thing that will ruin our souls.
Mm-hmm.
I thought, wow, it really is an exercise. It really is an exercise that you build up to. I remember on my mission, I was, it's a little bit easier atmosphere, to fast because you had someone there with you the whole time that was, going
Right.
after it too, and your whole zone was doing it, whatever. So it was just boom, boom, boom. We did it, and I did it for the whole 2 years that I can remember. It was just normal. Just that day came, boom, we fasted
Part of it,
24 hours. It was done, and I'm gonna tell you, it never phased me. It wasn't even a big deal. I probably could have went for 2 days. It felt like, you know what I mean? It's like it just because the more you do it, the easier it does become. It doesn't have to become less meaningful. It shouldn't, but it definitely can become easier on your physical body as you do that. But I tell you, you get out of practice and you don't do it like I do for a while, and then you try to do it, and it's like, oh my goodness, it's like okay, but it's a way to get closer to God. You put away worldly things to bring in the godly things closer. We know we depend on the Lord for food. It makes us think of it then and go, wow, you know what? If I didn't have any food for about 3 or 4 days, well, I don't know how long. That's actually water, I guess. I guess if I didn't have water for 3 or 4 days, I'd die. And it's kind of a, it's kind of a wake up call. And you go, okay, I do need the Lord. I do need to stay close to Him. So
Definitely, yeah. There are spiritual, physical, and psychological benefits.
Absolutely.
To fasting.
Absolutely.
Are y'all familiar with the marshmallow experiment? That's you know about that,
yes,
right?
The one
delayed gratification. What's interesting, is the children. Those children were followed throughout their lifetime. And the children that were able to resist the urge to eat the marshmallow, to wait to get the second one, were tremendously more successful in life than the children that were unable to wait. So it really it says a lot.
It does.
Being able to build that skill of being able to to hold back from the urges and the desires, of your body, and being able to build
restraint.
That restraint.
And
build that restraint, build that self-control, self-governance. It will benefit you in lots and lots of ways.
Absolutely. We're trying to become more like our Savior Jesus Christ. And did He have restraint? Absolutely. We talked about it last podcast.
Yes.
So this is a way that we can, on a very small scale, obviously, but a way that we can practice our restraint and show that we can have self-control. We can do this, and And I'm gonna tell you, every time if you ever want to get close to good food, just start a fast. Somebody's gonna bring something over. Somebody's gonna make something that you go to their house and they got it and they'll offer it to you freely. Here you go, something I've been wanting for months. And you want some of these? And oh my gosh, So
it's funny.
Now, I'm sad to say that I have broken a fast before because somebody's offered me something that I really wanted.
Ooh,
it's been a while back now, so I've repented of it. But,
okay.
I'm still worthy of the podcast.
That's funny.
At least.
That's right.
But no, it can be tough. It really is. I don't want to make light of it. It is tough for a lot of people. I mean, for myself included, I mean, it's just something you really got to show the real intent. I think the more we understand it and learn about it, the more apt we are to probably do it. And I need to study it more. I almost want to push it away every time I see fast come up, because like, let's talk about something else,
Yeah.
And so I need to dive into it deeper, and just as Isaiah was doing here, he was trying to get it out to the people and, teach them what they need to be doing. So,
did y'all have anything else?
Did you want to mention that, Kenny, on the?
Yeah, I did. I mentioned, I know in chapter 59, there's once again, I know my current probably favorite podcast is the Scripture Gems. I've been plugging them a lot, and they had a really good a metaphor. I loved it. And so in Isaiah 59 verses, let me see, we're talking about he's talking about groping in the dark. The first few verses here. And I'm trying to remember which were I can't now.
It's 9 and 10.
Okay, there it is. Yep, 9 and 10. Therefore is judgment from us, neither doth justice overtake us. We wait for light, but behold obscurity, for brightness, but we walk in darkness. We grope for the wall like the blind, and we grope as if we had no eyes. We stumble at noonday as in the night. We are in desolate places as dead men. And so, and there's another verse that it mentions, your paths, taking crooked paths and things. And they use the metaphor of a GPS, and it just blew my mind. I was like, that's so cool, because it really is. Like, so when you use it, pretty much everybody's familiar with the GPS now, whether you use your phone or you have a Garmin or something. And so when you plug in directions somewhere, your GPS automatically calculates the most efficient route from where you are to where you want to go. And if you follow the GPS, if you follow the instructions that it gives you, it's going to take you the best way. It's going to take you the shortest way. It's going to take you the quickest way. It's going to take you the way with the least problems. However, if you decide not to follow the GPS, or if you even inadvertently make a wrong turn, accidentally say, whoops, I turned on the wrong road, the GPS, it recalculates. It recalibrates, and it tells you, look, there's still a way back.
Your GPS doesn't holler at you and say, "You idiot."
My GPS doesn't even yell at. It doesn't
very,
even get
very
mad.
patient.
I could tell you, I've done it before too. I've like, I put in something in my GPS, and I'll turn down another road, and I'll decide I'm going to make a little side, and I won't reprogram it. I'll just leave the GPS on, and I'll go take a little side road and just decide I'm going to do something else before I go to my destination. And it never yells at me. It just every time it keeps recalibrating. It keeps, okay, here you go.
It holds that destination there.
But it holds the destination, and it tells you, it keeps saying, okay, well, okay, it's okay now. If you turn back here,
where
and then if I don't turn back there, it says, all right, we're going to recalibrate again. Here's what you need to do. And it keeps, it keeps that destination there. And that's how the Lord is. The Lord has given us, he's given us the instructions we need to return back home with him, to return back to our heavenly home, to live with Heavenly Father. But if we don't follow the path, it doesn't mean that we're lost forever necessarily. I mean, right. He's there. He's still there waiting for us. He's still there. Okay, get back on the path. We're going to recalibrate. Now, if you do this, you'll be back on the path. And, sometimes we do, sometimes we don't. Sometimes, people like me are especially hard-headed, and they have to wander off on weird little side streets for 20 years before they finally decide to start paying attention to the GPS.
Yeah. Well, I can tell you that I have yelled at my GPS before because I knew a better route.
That's right. That's a good one. That's a good one. Yeah, we do that too, don't we?
Say,
no, God, I know a better way. This is,
but you'd already been there before.
Better.
That's right.
You'd already been there before, so you already learned that. You didn't have to learn it again.
That's right. That's a good analogy, Kennedy. I like that.
Yeah, I do. I like it.
Well, all righty. If y'all don't have anything else, we'll shut this one down.
Oh yeah, there's lots more there. Of course,
there's lots more. A lot about
we could talk for 5 hours over this.
Yeah, but
do you high points and leave it up to y'all to.
I mean, there's stuff about the second coming that's cool. About how there. How it says there won't be any sunlight because Jesus Christ will be here on the earth.
Oh,
well, it says it actually means that Jesus Christ will be the light of the city of Zion. Which will be, you'll have two capitals, all this kind of stuff. Right. And I'm not saying we got to put this in the podcast, but you got Jerusalem, and then you got the one in Missouri. That'll be the two capitals of the world where Jesus Christ can be, and his light will light that city wherever he is. His light will do that. You won't need the sun, you won't need the moon or the stars or anything, but the sun will still be around for the rest of the world. I mean, we're still going to be planting crops. We're still going to be doing all kinds of things. It actually, there's a great quote in there that people can find wherever in the Old Testament Institute manual, and just learning about the second coming is really interesting. Bruce R. McConkie says a lot of stuff about it. It's very interesting. Isaiah talks a lot about the second coming, which is just fascinating. I think he got to see a lot of the stuff that would happen. Probably we talked about that before. I think he was privy to seeing a lot of what was going to happen during the millennium and all that kind of stuff. So it's pretty cool stuff. But yeah, learn it, read it, get on it, all kind of stuff.
Reminds me of a funny story I want to share real quick.
And then you got to share it. Remember?
So Vatican City. Okay, so the Pope is busy. Keeping up with his business, his duties, and whatever the Pope has to do. I know he has lots of responsibilities, and so one day, his number one advisor comes in and he said, I got good news and bad news. And he's like, so tell me, so what's the good news? And he says, well, Your Eminence, the good news is Jesus Christ himself is on the phone right now, and he asked to speak to you personally, and it's really him. The Pope is like, holy cow. He's like, well, what could possibly be the bad news? And he kind of looks down. He's like, well, he's calling from Salt Lake City. Doo-doo-tsh. It's all in fun. It's all in fun.
That's
Right.
funny.
I love all my Catholic friends. Don't
That's
be
Oh, we're
mad.
now at 437. 437 subscribers now.
So, yeah, it dropped by 50.
Woo! Yes.
That's funny.
No.
Well, all righty. Well, hey, we will let y'all get out of here. Until next time, y'all keep on striving. Thank you so much for checking out our podcast. We hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please be sure and leave us a review and rating. And then, of course, hit that subscribe button on our YouTube channel. Our ultimate goal is to help everyone experience gospel growth and good times as we strive to become the best versions of ourselves and ultimately who God needs us and wants us to become. May He bless each of you in that effort. Y'all keep on striving.